Hello, my name is Keith, and welcome to another 2015 League of Legends Champions Series video analysis. Once again, this will be a video analysis, not a shoutcast, so there will be plenty of spoilers. I'll be looking primarily at macro level play, talking a lot about team compositions and their win conditions, talking about team map rotations, their plays, how they pull off these win conditions from the start of a match, how they pull them off during the game as it progresses, what teams should be doing to win and control the match. I'll also be talking occasionally about lane matchups, item choices, individual plays, especially how to take down turrets and prevent situations in which the game stalls out, and just be looking at a lot of different things on more team strategy level than individual play. So I hope you're able to learn from it. For this match, we do have Dignitas versus Team Impulse. This is day 2 of week 1 of the North American LCS. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get into picks and bans. As normally, we see the Lee Sin ban on blue side and the Rex side ban on red. What this ends up creating is, since most teams do not want to fight against Rek'Sai, as he provides a lot of advantages, not just in terms of power, but in terms of information through his passive, we see a lot of red teams banning Rek'Sai. What this allows the blue team to do is to ban Lee Sin, guaranteeing that the blue side team can first pick a Jarvan if they decide that that's who they want. And then they have one of the top 3 junglers in the current meta. This gives a team a lot of power this way. In this situation, however, we see Dignitas want the Kassadin. Kassadin has also been a very highly contested pick throughout week 1, both in Europe and North America. He doesn't really have any weak lane matchups at the moment. He's able to farm safely in almost all of them. He is more of a late game scaling champion. You need to really be able to use his mobility as well as his burst without dying. So he's a little bit difficult in the current meta, I feel. You really have to have the right team in the right amount of time. So he has a lot of weaknesses, but they're kind of overcome just by the safety and prowess that he's able to offer a team. Unfortunately for Team Dignitas, though, this is not the best choice for their first pick. If they're going to ban Lee Sin and the other side's going to ban Rek'Sai, you really should be picking up the Jarvan. By not picking up the Jarvan and by picking this Kassadin, it allows Team Impulse to grab the Jarvan Gnar combo. What this combo is J4 goes in, creates his Cataclysm, Gnar follows him up, and all of a sudden he has walls everywhere to slam people into with his ultimate. It's very kind of bad choice on Dignitas' side that they were able to allow this combination to happen and to happen so quickly. So a little bit of a flub in the picks and bans here, I think. Not the end of the world, so we'll continue on. On Dignitas' side, we see Rengar and Sivir. These are actually really good combinations, and together, lots of move speed to get to the target. And against the team that Team Impulse crafts, I actually think it's pretty solid. It's going to allow them to get to the damage threat targets, which is primarily Corki in this game. And so it really works, and it helps with the pick potential during the mid-game to sort of start getting Kassadin to snowball and LeBlanc to snowball, who we'll see being picked up next. On Team Impulse's side, we see Corki and Thresh picked up. These are just 2 solid champions. With Corki having now a double front line in Jarvan Gnar, he'll be able to get off his rockets very easily. He'll be able to retreat and then have a safety of a front line. And he's really safe because of the 2 picks that the first 2 picks of TPI have chosen, as well as with this Thresh front line as well. Just solid picks, nothing too special. Lends towards the fight comp that it looks like DIP want. On Dignitas' side, we see LeBlanc and Annie being picked up. These are 2 really solid picks. Just all around good. Annie provides a lot of engage, so now Dignitas have a second form of engagement Instead of Rengar Sivir, now they can do Sivir Annie. So there's 3 potential ways for Team Dignitas to engage on a Team Impulse. And this works well for them because they really just need to kill Corki in this situation. If they can take out Corki before suffering too much damage or losses, they should be able to win team fights. Team Impulse's final pick is Lulu. On one hand, this kind of weakens the amount of damage that Team Impulse is able to do. They really are just sitting on this quirky damage, who is going to fall off in the late game. And everyone else on Team Impulse is really going to fall off in the late game too. But it does provide the safety against LeBlanc. It provides very solid laning against LeBlanc. And what's also going to be important in this match is the amount of push it provides. This is actually going to be rather a short game, so I'm going to try and get a lot of information in quickly, and that way I can also talk about the game while it happens. When I first saw these teams, I thought Team Dignitas was the much stronger team. They have a decent mid-game survival rate. They have Sivir and LeBlanc to provide wave clear. Primarily, it's going to be on Sivir's end, but even with just an Infinity Edge, a BF Sword, Q plus Ricochet Blade can clear most creep waves. So this is sort of Team Dignitas' survival point is wave clearing and waiting until Kassadin scales up. Waiting until they get to the point where they can take out Corki even through Lulu's shields and ultimate. And then once Corki's down, they should be able to pick off the rest of Team Impulse. They also have the Rengar for the picks in the mid game. They can start snowballing champions. So they have a very solid team. They have a solid plan. And I thought from team compositions that they had maybe a 75-80% chance to win. Primarily, this is because I didn't expect Team Impulse to play their team comp as well as they did. It is very unusual for teams to play this super fast push game that we're going to see TIP pull out. And so it caught me by surprise, but it worked out really well. So let's talk a little bit about TIP's team composition. Since Dignitas is more pick scaling to the late game, the longer the game goes on, the worse it's going to be for TIP. They're going to run out of damage, even though they're going to be very tanky. They're just not going to be able to kill people that they need to on Dignitas' side. With the triple dive composition of Rengar, LeBlanc, Kassadin, Corki is in a lot of trouble. He's got to be very careful, and if he gets killed, that's essentially it for the TIP team fight. Unless Dig spend like half of their HP bars, all of them, to try and kill this Corki. So this is kind of the flaw in TIP's team, but they have a huge spike in power in the early game and the early mid game, and up until about the 20-minute mark, 25-minute mark, they have a lot more power than Dignitas has. Now, this is important because that's a very low power curve mark. Once it gets to the 20-minute mark, once it reaches 25 minutes, Dignitas is going to start climbing ahead of TIP. What we are going to see is that TIP do not wait for this. They are on the offensive and looking to win the game before that mark even hits. This is going to be accentuated by this first gank by Jarvan. TIP know they have to win early, and they're going for it hard. We see one of the most unexpected things in the LCS is a level 2 gank. Most junglers do not like to do this, but we are going to see it from Jarvan right here. I think that Jarvan was a little late on that. I feel like he should have tried to flag and drag earlier to get in and force Annie's flash a little bit quicker. But in either way, they did burn Annie's flash. They got the lane advantage. And this is big because all of Dignitas' engagement at the moment is on that Annie. So this essentially prevents Dignitas from being able to engage in the bot lane for the next 6 minutes. So it gives a lot of pressure to this Corki and this Thresh, who have everything they need. They've got 2 summoners up on Dignitas. So Very good play by TIP. It does put Jarvan a little bit behind, but the advantage that they've created here is going to be very important for the rest of the game. Since TIP recognized that they have to win hard and early, this is one of the ways you do so, is you give a lane an extreme advantage right off the bat. So going back to the rest of Team Impulse's team, like I said, we have the Jarvan-Gnar combo. This is extremely strong. It's extremely potent. And you only need level 6 to do this. You don't really need to rely on items. Since everyone at that point is still kind of building damage, you have huge burst on Corki. Jarvan and Gnar are going to go one attack damage item first. If they're able to pull off this combo, they can stun up Dignitas' team for a good 3 or 4 seconds, especially if it gets comboed with Lulu's ultimate. This is enough time to allow Corki to get out his huge AoE. It is going to be a big factor in whether or not TIP can win team fights. With this Lulu pick, it also provides a huge amount of protection against LeBlanc, which is also pretty essential to TIP's composition, as it's going to be part of what keeps Corki alive to do his damage. The shields and peel from Thresh and Lulu are going to be essential to keep this Corki alive to be able to do his damage. The big power curve for TIP is going to be at the Trinity Force point of Corki. This is the one point in the game where TIP are going to have the biggest advantage over Dignitas, and it's the one point in the game where they must make use of it. And not use of it of simply taking 1 or 2 turrets. They need to use the Corki power spike to take out at least all of the outer turrets of Dignitas. That way they can generate a big gold advantage to power them through the next 5-10 minutes after that. Extend that curve from the 20-minute mark to the 30-minute mark if possible. They have a lot of work behind them, and it's not very usual that we see teams pushing that hard to be able to take out 6 turrets or more before the 20-minute mark. So in this game, I'm very impressed by Team Impulse, that they had the gumption and the gusto and the grit to do this. It's one thing I liked to talk about if you've ever watched some of my video analysis from Worlds, is how you need to recognize what your team composition is capable of and what it isn't, and then take the opportunities that your composition affords you and push them early. Case in point, there's a couple matches in Worlds where teams have poke siege comps or have split push comps, and they're really going to fall behind if they don't start off this poke or split push around, say, even the 9-minute mark. They have to do it really, really early to be able to effectively use their composition, and a lot of times we see siege and poke comps instead of starting off at 9-11 minutes. They don't start sieging and poking till like 20 minutes, and by that time it's too late because the other team has gotten the items they need to survive this. So this is why I was very surprised by Team Impulse's play. They recognize that they need to start their pushes and their groupings really early, and it catches Dignitas off guard completely. Part of this is Kassadin is picking up Tear of the Goddess as his first item. This lets you know that he is expecting a long match. It's not going to be until the 20-25 minute mark where this item even becomes very useful, especially against TIP's team, who is going to have huge early game damage in Jarvan and Gnar with their ultimates, in Corki with his AoE damage, his phosphorus bombs and rockets. Not going that Rod of Ages build for that early tankiness on Kassadin is really going to come and bite Dignitas in the rear end for that. It's a difference in having your power spike 2 or 3 minutes different time, and it's just enough of a window for TIP to capitalize on it. The other big thing that ends up happening is that this LeBlanc ends up going Athene's and Holy Grail. This is a perfectly fine item for a shifter to build, Um, I really prefer Morella Nomicon. You can pick up Morella Nomicon and then a Null Magic Mantle for the same price as it costs for an Athene's Unholy Grail. You get more mana regen out of the Morella Nomicon as long as you're above, it's about 33 to 40% mana, you get more back from Morella Nomicon. And then that Null Magic Mantle can be turned into something else as well as giving you the exact same amount of magic resist as Athene's does. So while it's not as slot efficient, it's more power efficient and allows you to, say, pick up an early Spectre's Cowl if you need the resist, or to turn it into an Null Magic Mantle and into an Abyssal Scepter. But since this LeBlanc is going Athenes, you know that they're looking for the late game. They're looking to extend the laning phase. They're not looking for early bursts of power. This dragon is a very good take by TIP. They recognize as soon as Annie went back that they can go ahead and take this dragon. And this is one thing, sort of a dragon of opportunity. 9 minutes is pretty early for most teams to be taking dragon that freely. But having seen that Annie backed, TIP know that they can go ahead and take this dragon. And so they go ahead and do. Part of this is also because Lulu is so good against LeBlanc in the mid lane. Lulu can keep LeBlanc pushed, can fight her back. And so TIP have the pressure in middle lane from the Lulu pick, as well as having the pressure in the bottom lane and having more numbers. So this is what leads to that early free dragon. Going back to the Athene's pick real quick, this also signifies, as I said before, that Dig is looking for a longer match. Sway Shifter is able to have solid sustain for roaming, for lane clear, as well as being able to stay up against this Lulu, who's very harassing in middle lane, without falling back. This comes to bite him in the rear, just like the Kassadin Tear the Goddess pick, because it doesn't give TIP enough early game power, or it doesn't give Dignitas enough early game power. If LeBlanc had instead picked up a Deathfire's Grasp, even instead gone something like Abyssal Scepter, or just straight Zhonya's, which wouldn't really be the right choice, but if she had gone something for more power early on, then she could have been targeting Corki for the kill, and that's something that Dignitas needed to recognize. Is the one real big threat, the primary threat on TIP is Corki, so LeBlanc needs to be part of bursting him down. You have Kassadin for the late game, and so you want to have something for the mid game. By going this double late game builds on Kassadin and LeBlanc, you're really signifying that you don't want to fight in the mid game and you're losing out on a lot of power. It's much better for you to have one of them go an early game build, the other one go a late game build, and this is naturally just be Kassadin going for his late game build, preferably through Rod of Ages, honestly, instead of Tear the Goddess, and having LeBlanc try to get some more power during the early and mid game. This is also should be led to the fact that Sivir is going to have less power than Corki in the mid game, and that she's primarily just going to be wave clear early on. Her spike is not going to happen until a bit later, as well as her being more of a supportive ADC instead of a primary damage dealer. So we're going to start seeing things pick up. We see Dignitas are making some great moves. They're using their pick comp right here with this Rengar properly, and this is what you want to do with Rengar, is you look for these quick picks, you get the kills, you get out. Especially with the Annie, you got the stun and the burst from LeBlanc. It's very good play, but it requires an extended amount of time to work. You're essentially only going for engagements and fights on Team Dignitas only when Rengar's ultimate is up and only when you can find a pick. So this essentially leads to something like 1 kill every 2 minutes. Whereas Dignitas need to get ahead by a good 5 or 6 kills before their composition will be on the same power curve as TIP in this early and mid game. But as said, like I earlier, I did like the Dig team composition, and I thought they were going to win. Dignitas are playing their team composition properly, and TIP are falling behind from it because they're sort of running the weaker lanes in, or weaker lane in the mid without the level 6 power of these junglers. And we see it happening again right here. Rengar is going for the pick. We see a lot of the power on Team Dignitas. They have these engagement tools and they have the roaming, and it's working out well for them. At this point in the game, you probably wouldn't be expecting Team Impulse to be able to come back as hard as they end up doing, but they make good use of this Trinity Force power spike that's going to come in from Corki, and we'll start seeing TIP go really hard very soon. To also go into this go hard sort of mindset, we got to look at Gnar's build. Gnar has gone Hex Drinker into Giant's Belt and Pickaxe. This is very unusual for Gnars we see lately. We do see Hex Drinker being picked up occasionally by Gnars, especially against double AP teams. It's a great pickup, but we almost never see an extra damage source coming out from Gnar. But in this case, we are seeing the Pickaxe, and this is going to go to the power of TIP's early game team. We see that Kassadin's really been bullied out here. Gnar uses his opportunity to take the top turret. TIP go push middle with Corki. Now he's got level 6 and the Sheen. They find the right opportunity knowing that Dig's engagement tools were down. They read the map correctly. These wards that are in the jungle of Dignitas allowed Team Impulse the vision of where Rengar was, of where Kassadin was, and we see TIP have taken 2 turrets right away, almost without response. And this should signal a little bit of worry for Dignitas. I'm sure they expected this. Lulu is naturally going to push LeBlanc in and get tower damage, so that it makes it very easy for Impulse to make that call to take it out. Letting Gnar get that kill on the turret in the top lane is a little rough. Dignitas didn't earn anything for it, and it's just a free turret shouldn't be given. We also see TIP are controlling the dragons properly. This tower buff is actually going to be very important in this match. This is one of the few times that we do see the second buff of dragon playing a huge factor in the game because of how fast Team Impulse are going to start pushing. We see as soon as after dragon, they know they only have a single objective up, which is this bottom turret. They see Kassadin top, they see LeBlanc bottom, so they decide why not 5-man this bottom turret. And this is the proper choice. They knew the positioning of Dig. They only had one primary objective from the other team out. Dignitas really should have been expecting this, even after, knowing that TIP were at dragon as 5. Why wouldn't they go bottom? So this is a bad read by Dignitas and a great play by TIP. So all of a sudden, TIP have taken the lead. They've generated about 4,000, 5,000 gold in the span of 2.5, 3 minutes. Corki now finally goes back. He gets his Trinity Force. And we're going to see, this is the point in time where most teams would just stop. You've got the outer turrets. Now you're going to wait for a couple more power spikes. You're not going to push very hard. We see this situation all the time where teams have a problem breaking past these inner turrets. TIP, however, are not going to wait at all. And this is very paramount for their victory because they are going to be the team that falls behind. But they're not going to let that happen. They go for wards. They already have a plan. They say, let's go look at this top lane turret. They're able to get it. Now that they have caught Rengar out in the jungle, it's just Kassadin. Kassadin doesn't have very good wave clear. LeBlanc doesn't have very good wave clear. There's not much for Dignitas to do to be able to defend this top turret. They need Sivir to be in position for the wave clear. Also, Annie's pushing the bottom lane on Dignitas all by herself. There's really not a reason for this. She needs to be with her team for the engagement. So Dignitas once again are getting caught off guard. So we see Team Impulse, now they have taken the top inner turret. Now they're going to work for the next one. This is very important. I feel that they're constantly putting on this push because the gold from the turrets is what is giving them the advantage. And they're using this Corki's power spike really, really well. Next, we're going to see a nice push in the middle, and we're going to see the Gnar Jarvan combo take great effect, as well as the strength of Lulu in defending Corki. And it's going to be the linchpin of the game. It's going to end within the next 5 minutes. And we're going to see that fight in about 2. Going back to the item pickups, I just want to stress that a lot of this comes with the fact that Kassadin is very weak at the moment, and LeBlanc is only so-so. She's on par with Lulu, but she doesn't provide what Lulu provides to TIP's team. Lulu provides a lot of safety and push potential. She provides wave clear, whereas LeBlanc has to go in for her wave clear. And this is part of the problem with team compositions that go for the late game scaling. And the late game scaling on Team Dignitas is obvious to be seen. Kassadin with the Archangel Scepter. Athena's Unholy Growth with LeBlanc. She's expecting the game to go long. That way she has a lot of sustain, a lot of regen, and just a lot of safety. She's not looking for her power early. And it's very smart of TIP to end up abusing this. So as we're coming up, we have Dragon about to spawn in a minute, but we do have a while to wait, so TIP are going to go for this push. They group up as 5. They saw that Sivir had backed, and so now they're going to use the advantage. They know they have the time of a little bit of 5v4. Kassadin's off to the side, and here's a bad engage by Dig. They get the stun onto Corki, but he does get away. And now we see Lulu provides tons of peel. She provides the safety. We see Gnar and Jarvan up front being very tanky, getting the damage. Part of why this works is because Gnar has gone that Maw of Malmortius early. He's gone for the early game power of the damage, and he's able to keep LeBlanc and Kassadin at bay, so to speak. A big problem with Dig's engagement is they engaged almost 3v5. They needed Kassadin and LeBlanc to be able to be in range to burst Corki, as well as then using the Sivir ult to keep the follow-up on him and then move around out of the Gnar and the Jarvan. This pickup here during this fight of the Warmogs after the Maw of Malmortius is huge. Sivir is not a big tank killer, especially when she only has an Infinity Edge. So this provides massive amounts of power to this Gnar. And here's the problem we see is we only see Rengar and LeBlanc going in against this Corki. He's never really under any pressure. He's over half HP at all times. But you have to recognize whenever the other team has somebody like Lulu, you need your whole team if you're planning to burst somebody down. So Team Impulse have taken the one window of opportunity that their team composition has, looked at the build path of Team Dignitas and said, hey, we can win this game right now. They don't hesitate. It's sub 20 minutes, or right around the 20-minute mark inhibitor, and now they're going to keep pushing. They don't let up, and this is why TIP are able to win this game against a team composition that really had more options. They take the one option they do have of this fast push and super, super fast push and take it into a win against Dignitas. A big reason for the Warmog's Maw of Malmortius pickup from Gnar is just something we don't see normally. Is, once again, they wanted him to have some damage. TIP recognized that their team is a little lacking on damage when it comes to only having Corki as a primary source, so they want to fit a little bit more into Gnar while still having him tanky. The Warmog's pickup, instead of, say, Randuin's Omen or an AP, another magic resist item, is that they really just want this frontline mass of numbers. You are only running with Burst AP damage from Cassidon and from LeBlanc. There's no sustained damage. This makes Warmogs really good against them, as there's no chance that they will be able to take out the Gnar with LeBlanc and Cassidon, as well as Sivir not being able to mow down through that HP either, as she's mostly a caster ADC as well. Pure HP is really strong against burst casters of any kind, as you get that huge amount of regen after the fight, as well as getting that just the numbers to survive through bursts of either AP or AD. So with the mid inhibitor down, we see TIP properly. They don't mess around. They know they have the power. They head straight bottom and into the base of DIG. This is essentially the match. I hope you can recognize from this match the power spikes, what Dignitas did that prevented them from having any mid-game power, and what Team Impulse did to give themselves this massive amount of power in the mid-game. Some of this was from champion choices, some of this was from item choices, and Impulse was able to recognize this and use it to their advantage. So take away, know your team composition's windows of opportunity, know the other team composition's windows of weakness, and use them appropriately. You do not have to wait for 30-35 minutes to win a game. You can essentially have guaranteed yourself the victory by the 20-minute mark, and that's what TIP did. They knew their comp was strong. They placed good wards that allowed them to see when Dignitas was dealing with the lanes instead of being grouped up. And then they took their 5-man squad and pushed turrets. They made sure to create that gold advantage, that opportunity. And this is huge in this new season, because gold advantages come purely from kills, CS, and turrets. There's no more dragon disparity. You can't control that objective and let the dragon gold take your mid-game team to the win. So this is actually very beautifully played by Team Impulse, and it did catch me by surprise. I knew their team composition was capable of it, but I didn't expect a team to actually be able to pull it off the way they did. So, huge props to them. Once again, I'm Keith, aka LoLByTheNumbers, and tune in each week as I will be providing analysis for 2 to 4 games from the LCS, be it Europe or NA. And once again, thanks for watching.